Start game now. Welcome to another edition of the No Swear Gamer. Hailing from parts unknown, it is the Masked Pack making his pro wrestling debut, and with him he brought Title Match Pro Wrestling for your Atari 2600. Check out that cast of characters. It would make 1980s Vince McMahon proud. Yeah, what a group of guys. But let's go ahead and take Title Match Pro Wrestling, pop it into our Atari VCS, and just find out how it holds up today. Let's go to the game. Title Match Pro Wrestling was published by Absolute Entertainment and carries a copyright year of 1987. It is a wrestling game, for 1 or 2 players, and it has 2 modes, either one-on-one or tag team. Both modes are 2 out of 3 falls. And if you play the tag team mode for 2 players, each player will control 1 team. The game gives you 4 wrestlers to choose from. The bald-headed guy is called Skinhead, a name I probably would have chose something different. The Native American, who is way too red, is called Big Chief. The African American is called Mad Dog. And the masked guy is called Mr. Mean. But you know what? Let's go really old school. Let's make the bald guy Baron Von Raschke, the Native American Wahoo McDaniels, the African American Bobo Brazil, and the masked wrestler Masked Superstar. That makes sense for me. When you start the game, if you're holding up on the joystick and you press the button, you will punch, and if you're holding down and the button, you will kick. This will rapidly decrease your opponent's strength meter, but even if you punch them a million times in a row and the strength meter goes all the way down to zilch, you will never knock them down. In order to do that, you first must bear hug them. To bear hug your opponent, you must press towards and the button at the same time, right at the right time, and I found this very hard to do. Once you get them in a bear hug, there's different options of what you can do. If you press up on the joystick, you will power lift them, or if you press down, you'll give them a canvas slam. If you press towards them, you can start to spin them around the ring, at which point you can let go of the joystick and swing them against the ropes for kind of a clothesline type of move. While you're holding them up, if you press up and the button at the same time, you will do a backdrop. If you press down and the button at the same time, you will do a body slam. When the opponent is down, you can lift them back up by pressing up and the button. You can also do an elbow drop and try and pin him by pushing down and the button, or you can press left or right and the button to get him back in a bear hug again. You can also climb on the ropes. You do this by going up to one of the corners and pressing up and the button at the same time. Once you are on the ropes, you can actually walk around, or you can dive down by pushing up and the button again on the joystick. So yes, this game uses a lot of joystick and button movements at the same time. The game also features something called muscle mode, which is enacted by wiggling your joystick left and right as quickly as possible. If you are in a hold, you use this to try and break the hold, or if you are being pinned, you use the muscle mode to try and kick out of the pin. However, if you're pinning an opponent, you also want to wiggle the joystick left and right for muscle mode to keep them down on the ground. Win a match and your guy will dance around the ring. Graphically speaking, the game, well, I guess it looks kind of okay. You can tell what the wrestlers are, even though I thought their trunks kind of looked squarish, almost like a sensor bar. And the sound effects, I guess they served their purpose, but there wasn't anything too fancy. It's a mostly family-friendly game, but this is wrestling, so you do have some cartoony kind of violence going on here. On eBay, loose copies of the game can be had for about $5 to $7, and both complete copies and new copies could be had for about $10 to $15, and as always, this includes the shipping. So would I recommend Title Match Pro Wrestling? No. Sadly, no. I was a big wrestling fan growing up in the 80s, and this kind of game would appeal to me, but the controls are just very, very frustrating to get down. It may have sounded simple, but it's very hard to pull off. I found it very difficult to get my opponent in the bear hug. You are rapidly hitting buttons and joysticks during the main part of the match, so when you do get him in a bear hug, by the time you realize it, you've probably already thrown him down or done something else that you didn't want to do. I really wish this game had a slower pace and the controls were much more intuitive. To make things even more interesting, when you play a tag team mode against a computer and your computer opponent makes the tag by going down to the bottom of the ring, it's like he hot tags the person and that guy's almost invincible, and almost every time you will get pinned. Actually, I had a hard time winning any of these matches, especially the 2 out of 3. If I was able to pin the guy down, The next time he typically beat me 2 times in a row. It was very hard to beat the computer just because the controls were so difficult to get a hold of. So overall, I'm going to have to pass. It looks kind of decent. I like the fact that there's a wrestling game on the 2600, but it just doesn't work. Wrestling games should be much simpler, and so should most 2600 games. So where am I going to rank it? Well, among sport games and other games that I really don't recommend to anyone. So let's see, 22 I have Real Sports Soccer, which controls a lot better. I'd rather play Real Sports Soccer than this, but at 23 I have Space Jockey. Now Space Jockey controls better, but I find it just boring. And just because this is a wrestling game and I like wrestling games, I'm going to put it right there at 23. If it was a wrestling game, it'd probably even fall lower than that. Thank you guys for giving me a little part of your time. Don't forget to click the like and subscribe buttons. Totally appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing you next time right here on the No Swear Gamer. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.